Never trailed in either game. The Bruins held Texas 40 points below their scoring average and kept South Carolina 28 points below their scoring average. The Bruins are only the second women's basketball team in the Big Ten Conference to win the national title. Purdue did it in 1999. UCLA coach Corey Close and her staff will face a very tough rebuilding challenge in the offseason. Close is losing 8 seniors. 6 of the seniors were her best players. Lauren Betts, Kiki Rice, Gabriella Jaquez, Angela Dugalic, Gianna Neekins, and Cherise Lega-Walker. Close also does not have any recruits coming in that are listed on ESPN's top 100 list for 2026. The Bruins are going to need some significant help from the NCAA transfer portal. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At the tone, please record your message.
You ready?
Drop it!
Mr. Tavis Smiley, preach it. Thank you, man. Politics in this country is crazy. You put things in perspective that even I didn't. The right is playing fast and loose with facts and scapegoating everyone under the sun, especially black and brown people. As a white man, I do not agree with this, and I am on my black and brown brothers and sisters' side. Fight the good fight. You know that I am part of the resistance. Let's fight the power.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your flag.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
Good afternoon. This is Jesse Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, live here on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina today. Yesterday, we were in Charlotte, North Carolina, heading to New York for the National Action Network Conference, meeting tomorrow and Wednesday with the Legislative Political Action Committee of the Divine Nine for the state of North Carolina, discussing politics, discussing the future of our country and our union, and how we can all work together to build the kinds of majority that we need in order to stop the behavior that we are seeing in the White House. This is Moving Mountain Mondays, and our regular contributor, Taz, is with me on this particular program as our engineer, and Ernest Krimp. We are live in Mr. Ernest Krimp's classroom. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
Thanks again for having me, brother.
Ernest, I was deeply concerned about a tweet that I saw from the President of the United States, And even though I don't have the power to invoke the 25th Amendment, that is the amendment to the Constitution that would call for his removal as President of the United States, it is clear that the President of the United States is in some kind of mental health struggle. It's playing out right before the American people and before the world. But there doesn't seem to be any calls echoing my sentiment that the President of the United States needs to be removed from office and that he is an extremely dangerous and volatile man at this hour.
Yeah, for me, when you think about the credentials and the regard and the expectations we have at certain levels of not just government in our country, but also to certain levels of employment. You know, as a former classroom teacher, I think about if I would be able to even keep a job as a teacher, posting and dictating some of the things that he's doing to the people in his circle to post on his Truth Social app. It is deeply concerning. And I think one of the most concerning things about this is it feels as though we have been so numb to this behavior over the course of even though I hate to say it, 10 years. Can you believe that? We've been putting up with this for nearly 10 years, more than 10 if you consider his first campaign. I think the thing that we have to realize in this moment is we have to have a call to action. There has to be some type of urgency within all levels of our government. And as someone who is actively working, in the schools and various places, you understand that when you do anti-racist work or activist work, that the way that you eradicate these issues is not just have the people who are most impacted by it agitate, but you have to have people who perceive themselves to benefit from the system, like let's say the Republicans, actually stand up and say something and do more in this moment.
I'm of the opinion that if more mental health professionals and associations called for the complete objective examination of the President of the United States' mental health, there might be some action in this direction. But too many of us are allowing the media to just sit back idly by and suggest that the president is not in a personal crisis. And from my perspective, he absolutely is. I mean, I know a personal crisis when I see one. But any person who has the power to order men and women into harm's way, the power to make the ultimate sacrifice for their nation, that is this unhinged, that is clearly not receiving advice from thoughtful military strategists, as well as, how shall I say it, the intelligence community's perspectives on critical ways in which we must defend the interests of the United States. And certainly the president seems to be actually conducting this war by himself. He's the one making critical decisions that would normally be turned over to the War Department under a defined mission, if you will, the Defense Department under a defined mission to determine whether or not the objectives and the goals of the administration and the country's strategies are being met. But because the mission has not been defined, because the goals have not been defined, the president seems to wake up every single day with a different marker that he wants to see the U.S. military accomplish. And this present rant borders, I can't say it borders, it's nothing short of insanity.
I think that we often discount the fact that we have the privilege of living away from many of these conflicts, and I think because of that, sometimes when we see these posts online, especially when you'll see this in the midst of other social media posts, you might think that this is entertainment when we're talking about actual lives that are at risk right now because of this narcissist.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're talking about the mental health of the president, and we haven't even begun to talk about the idea that the president of the United States was making these kinds of comments, these kinds of tweets on Easter Sunday. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580. Are
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA Talk 1580 stands with you in fighting for the rights of Black workers, and we don't black down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars working collectively to improve the position of the Black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the Black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare Black workers for employment in high-wage career track jobs. The LA Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. And they are advocating for a fair deal for Black workers in the new Los Angeles City Charter. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing, or learn about union apprenticeship programs and trade registries, please visit lablackworkercenter.org. That's lablackworkercenter.org. Together, we can beat the Black jobs crisis and build a more equitable Los Angeles. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Moving Mountain Monday. Donald Trump tweeted, Tuesday will be power plant day. That's a war crime. And bridge day. All wrapped up in one in Iran. That's a war crime. You can't shut down the power of civilians and their ability to egress and degress back and forth across the country. That is a war crime. And the President of the United States announced it in a tweet. There will be nothing like it. Open that effing straight, you crazy. He used the B word. Or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald John Trump. Praise be to Allah. Peace be unto you, to the prophet. It's almost as if the president of the United States is taunting the Arab world. Praise be to Allah is in his tweet. This is definitely a mental health crisis. Ernest, this breakdown occurs on Easter, while the rest of the nation and the rest of the world is really commemorating the crucifixion of Jesus on Friday, but celebrating his resurrection on Sunday or 3 days later on Monday. I know today you wanted to talk about Easter Monday. for African Americans, what it essentially means. But I must admit to you, this is the first Easter in the 61 years that I've enjoyed the celebration, the commemoration celebration, if you will, where there was a gloom over the holiday, over the Christian high season itself, because of the leadership of the President of the United States.
Yeah, brother Jesse, what you bring up and bring to our attention is of the utmost concern. It should be at the top of every resident or citizen in this country's mind. Because what we're seeing, to me, is truly, we often talk about how some mental health professionals over the years have maybe even say he's had some type of narcissistic personality disorder. And all of that aside, what we're seeing, to me, is a greater symptom of something that is a true issue in this country. And what we have not eradicated at the surface level, when I look at this from an educational perspective, is we don't hold everyone to the same regard when we are disciplining people. What I mean by this is, and I'll just draw a comparison to the sports fans right now with Gino Auriemma, for the people who are following women's college basketball. Over the weekend, he lost to Dawn Staley in the University of South Carolina. And immediately after that loss, even before the loss, there was a couple seconds left, he goes up to Dawn Staley, and instead of congratulating her, he begins to berate her for saying that she did not shake his hand before the game started. Now, there was proof that she did, but there was a time at the half court where she didn't come out, and I guess that's what he was expecting. And even when it was proven that he was wrong about that, even when it was proven that he was wrong about one of his players' jerseys being ripped by somebody on the other team, he still doubled down in that moment to justify what he did. And they were telling him in real time he was wrong. His teammates, even one of his players, even said, "Yeah, I ripped the jersey myself," and so on and so forth. Even when he apologized, he did not mention her name. And I'm saying all this to say, this man has won 10 national championships. Is regarded as the greatest women's basketball college coach, right, ever, right? Still not satisfied. There was a gentleman who posted a video about white male privilege online that I reposted, and he talked about how that shows itself in the workplace. And it's this irrationality of, you lost, you are not fit for this, you have not proven yourself to be the best, but you try to change the narrative to be about something completely different, as to take away the guilt from you. Seeing the same thing play out right here. You have everything you wanted. You have the election. You won this election. We don't want you here, but you're here. You have ascended to these heights, evading every type of form of accountability. You are absolutely horrendous morally, politically, as a leader. And even having everything at your disposal, you still seek to ravage and destroy everything that comes across your way, and then make excuses at the same time. So now we're not talking about all the various reasons why he shouldn't even be president. We are sitting here talking about how he is essentially abusing his war powers as the commander-in-chief. That's what he wants. This person should technically be in prison right now. But whether it be in college basketball, whether it be in the political field, whether it be when I'm in a class as a teacher, having to talk to administrators about how this child should be disciplined like every other child is, we're dealing with that same symptom.
Ernest, let me ask you this question, Ernest. As a former high school teacher of 12 years, who already spent a considerable amount of time educating your students on the civics of the United States itself, what do you tell your students about something like this? How do you even begin to broach the conversation that the processes that you explained about the civic nature of the government itself, its branches, its branches, the structure of the government, the executive, the legislative, the House, but the personality of the individual within certain offices don't reach the standards of a public servant? Where do you begin, Ernest, as a teacher?
I've thought about that a lot over the past decade or so, but in particular over the last year and a couple months. I've had conversations with other educators who used to be in the class and some who still are. And I think what it boils down to is because even before we've had Trump in office, I've had these conversations because our students would clearly see the hypocrisy in us. Whenever we would get to the Bill of Rights, they would see what they were promised and they would see what actually is. And they would see the context of when these laws were passed and when they became a thing for us. And they would actually see the fact that the hypocrisy of those folks enslaving people and denying women rights and taking indigenous land. And I would always let them know that these things are great ideals, but they can only be perfected by people who hold those in power accountable. Case in point, we can talk about, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. But then we also have to keep in mind that I have my students understand 100 years later, we were still fighting for that to be actualized. Like what Rosa Parks did, what Claudette Colvin, Joanne Robinson did in the 1950s. That was to hold people in power accountable. So these laws are great. What we have in place is great, but it can only be enforced if there are enough people aware of the abuses that we're being subjected to hold these people accountable. And I think from a hopeful lens, that makes me feel empowered because we have to always remember that not everybody is still voting. Not everybody is involved on a regular basis. Not everybody is doing what you're doing in between these elections to keep these conversations going. So there's always a way for us to improve, but I have to have them understand that they still possess the ability collectively to make these things a true fact for us all.
I am going to dedicate a series on our radio show to a book that I wrote titled and called The Finger of God. It is available on Amazon.com because while we know all of the problems that the country had at its inception, slavery, the genocide against Native Americans, the treatment of women, and the list goes on and on and on. I don't need to restate it here. I did find, while incarcerated, an experiment in the Constitution of a moral standard for the leadership of our nation that the founding fathers placed in the Constitution in a very, very complicated, multi-decade experiment that culminated in a provision in the Constitution that they called the Finger of God. It is a character litmus test for the leadership of this country. I found it. Now, I'm 61 years old. By the time the nation comes around to the idea that Jesse Jackson Jr. found something in the Constitution of the United States, and by the way, my book has won almost a dozen awards for those who do read scholarly material, but I tried to write it as simply as I possibly could and share with the American people exactly where the standard is for moral leadership in the Constitution of the United States. The founding fathers placed it in the Constitution as a function that they believed at the hour they placed it there that only white men could understand. Jefferson and John Adams engaged in a number of correspondences between each other, asking themselves the question, do you think that the inspirited people will ever find it? He was talking about African Americans who liked to sing and dance at the hour that they were inserting this in the Constitution. And Jefferson said, no. They simply have not been to all of the schools that I've been to be able to figure this out. But John Adams is scratching his head saying, but then these people are full of spirit, man. I mean, they're full of spirit. So he said, no, but they can't find it. They can't find it because we placed it in there in a certain kind of way. Well, I found it. And yes, the inspirited ones have found it. And we're going to have to elevate this conversation to not just what politicians should do, but this idea that public servants, that we are servants of the people, that we believe in servant-based leadership, that high office is a high calling for people of high character. And somehow at this hour in American history, Ernest, that's just not the case. And I can only imagine that while you were teaching civics, that imparting some kind of moral code and some kind of moral value system to students was also a job that fell on you as a high school educator as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I think that we have to definitely continue to emphasize that you are, I think, one of the most perfect people to speak to that at this point in time, man. You have such a rich experience and intellect about this. And I think that's something that I failed to mention, is because even when we talk about all these laws and we want to put people in position to hold people accountable, none of this matters without the right character, the right morality. When I was at a school district, I mean, we had, you know, character traits that we were expected to compliment kids for. When we saw that, you know, that's a part of the classroom expectations. You are expected to, do this for this result, but the result isn't just academic. When I see former students, they don't talk about just the content. They talk about how I treated them as people, how I respected them, how I helped them think critically. And that is the thing when I'm speaking, you know, to whether it be different schools or colleges now or different communities, that's the thing we have to talk about, because it's not so much the school you went to or how much money you make. We are at a breaking point when, especially as a person who was raised in an environment where we were made to think that the best way to be quote unquote successful is to make a bunch of money. We are finding out that that is a lie. The money, the fame. I just saw this interview over the weekend with Arsenio Hall to kind of drive this point home. And the interviewer asked Arsenio about, he heard a rumor, I guess, that he had an opportunity to be in Bad Boys of Martin Lawrence. And he said that he didn't want it. He was fine. He was coming off the talk show and everything. And he found that he wanted to be able to spend more time with his family. He found that he didn't need a whole bunch of money and fame. He just needed enough money to be able to, you know, pay all his bills and do everything he needed to and wanted. And I think that's the realization a lot of us are coming to. Again, what is all of this stuff worth, y'all, if we don't have people in power with dignity to treat people appropriately, regardless of their religion? I think that's why so many times we hold on to the fact that we want our leaders to have a certain religion, because we think that means that they will be held to a certain level of virtuosity. But we're seeing time and time again that people will use that as a shield to do what they want under the guise of capitalism or racism or any other ism.
Ernest, we just have about 2.5 minutes before we come forward here on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I have a question for you. Should Iran, because Donald Trump is demanding that the Strait of Hormuz be opened immediately, and that's largely responsible for his rant, his childish rant, should Iran make America and should Israel pay and reimburse the Iranians for everything America and Israel destroyed before Iran opens the Strait of Hormuz? Wouldn't you make that a criteria before you begin the supply of oil to the rest of the world again?
Undeniably so. Undeniably so. It seems like it would make the most sense, right, to do something like that in this moment, and to also to like what would be, and I would kind of ask you this too, what would be the best way? Are we too far gone right now? If the president is somehow held accountable, and eventually, of course, we do get new leadership in, how do we begin to mend this? Is something that is perplexing me in this moment.
That's a deep and profound question, one that we're obviously going to have to consider when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour, our very special regular contributor is none other than a teacher, Ernest Krim. Ernest Krim has taught for more than a decade high school students. What do you tell high school students about the behavior of the President of the United States and the conduct of this war? I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward on Moving Mountain Mondays.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. On CNN's State of the Union, Black Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock says he's praying for President Trump, saying he needs a lot of prayer.
I pray in as much as he has influence and power over people I care about. I affirm his humanity as I affirm the humanity of anybody.
The pastor senator says his prayers also focus on accountability, arguing faith should hold those in power responsible for their actions. Tesla is being sued by a black woman from Georgia who says her young son and his father died after becoming trapped inside a burning Tesla. The lawsuit claims witnesses couldn't open the doors as the battery burned following a crash. She's asking for a jury trial. And Pepsi is pulling its sponsorship of London's Wireless Festival after backlash over Kanye West headlining all 3 nights. The move follows criticism from British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
We still have that stall in Irwindale on the 210 westbound right after Irwindale Avenue. It's a disabled semi in the middle lanes. Now, they've called for a heavy-duty tow. It's on the way, but it is backed up from before Grand Avenue. Then in Pasadena, 210 westbound of Lake Avenue, the right lane is closed for some tree removal. Going to be that way till 3:15. And in Universal City on the 101 southbound of Vineland, they're going to do a break to fill some potholes there.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A couple of impressive notes from the national championship for the UCLA women's basketball team. In their final 4 games against Texas and South Carolina, UCLA never trailed in either game. The Bruins held Texas 40 points below their scoring average and kept South Carolina 28 points below their scoring average. The Bruins are only the second women's basketball team in the Big Ten Conference to win the national title. Purdue did it in 1999. UCLA coach Corey Close and her staff will face a very tough rebuilding challenge in the offseason. Close is losing 8 seniors. 6 of the seniors were her best players. Lauren Betts, Kiki Rice, Gabriella Jaquez, Angela Dugalic, Gianna Neekins, and Cherise Lega-Walker. Close also does not have any recruits coming in that are listed on ESPN's top 100 list for 2026. The Bruins are going to need some significant help from the NCAA transfer portal. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At the tone, please record your message.
You ready?
Drop it!
Mr. Tavis Smiley, preach it. Thank you, man. Politics in this country is crazy. You put things in perspective that even I didn't. The right is playing fast and loose with facts and scapegoating everyone under the sun, especially black and brown people. As a white man, I do not agree with this, and I am on my black and brown brothers and sisters' side. Fight the good fight. You know that I am part of the resistance. Let's fight the power.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Ready to order.
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver Card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver Card is at table 27 and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver Card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is connecting you with services and solutions. Domestic violence and family violence is when someone in an intimate or family relationship tries to gain or maintain power and control over another through a wide range of abusive behaviors. Every single act may amount to abuse. Abuse can take on various forms: psychological and emotional, physical and economic, and sexual abuse. The Genesee Center Incorporated is a nationally recognized nonprofit domestic violence prevention and intervention organization, housing women and children from 30 days up to 2 years through emergency and transitional shelters. The Genesee Center also provides support services like mental health counseling, life skills classes, computer training, job referrals, after-school programs for children, field trips, tutoring, and comprehensive direct legal services. If you need help or you'd like to donate or volunteer, call the Genesee Hotline, 1-800-479-7328. That's 1-800-479-7328, or visit Genesee.org. Everyone has the right to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are in Raleigh, North Carolina today. Tomorrow, I will be speaking both tomorrow and Wednesday with the Legislative Political Action Committee of the Divine Nine, the sororities and fraternities of the state of North Carolina, and their legislative conference organizers actively engaged in putting forward candidates, registering people to vote, and bringing new people into the process. We're going to have a thoughtful conversation of what next of the political climate that we find ourselves in. I'm really honored to be here. And very quickly, a couple of changes to the Jesse Jackson Jr. show. It is my expectation that sometime in June, we hope to have the technology prepared. I've already begun making the investment in it, where you will be able to call in to the Jesse Jackson Jr. show, which should make our conversation interesting, because those of you who can reach us on the app and those of you who are listening to us in Los Angeles and around the country and around the world will be able to call into our show and offer some insights and some opinions on critical issues that confront us every day. I've already made a significant investment in portable Wi-Fi, business Wi-Fi, that literally allows me to carry the show just about anywhere in the continental United States without any interruption. So I want to thank you all very much for your patience as we try to improve and bring an even higher quality show to our listenership. Ernest, let's get back to this guy who should be removed from the White House by way of the 25th Amendment. This is barely a quarter into the administration, and the unraveling appears to be happening very, very quickly. I'm thinking that if you're a member of Congress in this Congress, and the president has now proposed a $1.5 trillion military budget, he wants the federal government out of the Medicare business, out of the Medicaid business. Right behind that has to be out of the Social Security business, even though that's our money. We've been investing that. That's our money. It does not belong in the military or for any other government purposes. We've invested it and had our taxes withheld. It seems to me that the unraveling isn't just what he's saying in the war. The domestic consequences of his behavior are nothing short of extraordinary.
I think that if you were to let the American people see the detail of which he is telling us that the programs he would like to cut, many of us will be disgusted, right? I can name a few as I'm looking right now at this document. So we're talking 1.5 trillion. I think that has to be clarified too, because in my mind, I can't really make sense of that, because I'm even thinking like, yeah, 1.5 billion is a lot, right? 1.5 million is a lot too, but 1.5 trillion. He is proposing, right? In order to have this for the military, he would cut 510 million for grants for farmers and agricultural research, right? That's how we eat, all right? $82 million in loans for rural small businesses. $240 million for school meals and food education for children abroad. We'll fully eliminate that. This is just touching the surface right here. $993 million for scientific research and technology standards. What does this mean for how we prioritize the American people here, right? I would always tell children too, when you think about voting, it's not always what you do every 4 years, every 2 years, right? You vote with how you spend your money. So if you look at your budget, if you look at your parents' expenditures or bank statements, you can see what they are advocating for the most. Now, for most people, of course, that's going to be food, it's going to be bills and stuff like that, mortgage, rent, whatever. For us as a nation to continually prioritize taking our money, I think that's the most important thing we have to make sure we say too, because sometimes we say tax money, but if we are reducing this to that most minute level, I think it connects with people more. It's our money. It's money that they're pulling from our checks, not to make sure that we all are benefiting from and have welfare, but to continue this militarism, this military industrial complex. You're telling me you want to pull $510 million in grants for farmers and agricultural research? What does that mean for not just for the starving kids, but what does that mean for grocery prices? What does that mean for any of us in this country right here? So for me, just like with most things he's doing, I'm absolutely disgusted.
You know what I find really interesting, and I think one of the reasons that that Tavis reached out and allowed me to have the privilege of having this show was the experience that I brought from 17 years of Congress to the table. And what I can tell you right now is this, that if Congress under Mike Johnson comes anywhere close to $1.5 trillion for the military, that many of the programs that the Democrats are running on right now, the resources will simply not be available to fund those programs in the fiscal year that they will be elected in. Let me say that again. In the fiscal year of 2027, when they are sworn in January, the programs that they promised the people that they would sustain will simply not have the resources to be able to be funded. Now how do Democrats explain, or anybody else, including Republicans who are fighting for farmers and fighting for rural interests, how do you explain to the American people that you're running for office to bring benefits home to them when the reality is, because Donald Trump says his only job is to fight wars. Wars is what his job is. How do you explain to the American people that their expectations of what the government should be doing simply will not happen?
Brother, we are past, until people can really conceptualize what this means for people, right? It's so often you see people who are still going so hard for their favorite party, and I understand to a degree, but we're talking about people right now. And one of my issues and concerns is always wondering if this will remain in the memory of those who are most affected. What he does legislatively does not just affect Black people, Latinx people, women. This impacts all Americans. It does not pass over your house because you voted a particular way. And those in rural communities will be initially impacted the most, especially because of the lack of accessibility to resources in the community. This, for me, sounds like going back to the analogy of, what we have decided we want to vote on based on how we spend. Like, imagine as a parent, right? If you are deciding that, well, I know my kids are going to be hungry, but let me just go get some more bullets instead. My kids might not eat breakfast tomorrow, but let me invest in buying another gun. We are so far gone than any of our so-called American values. It is absolutely repulsive. Looking back at this list, $8.5 billion is being proposed to be cut for funding for public schools, right? $2.7 billion for college access and higher education. This is not just a problem for those who are viewed as people of color, y'all. This is a problem that everyone will deal with. And like you said, brother, this is something that will impact us immediately. And these are folks who have the ability to intervene and make decisions that help us, while at the same time not being impacted initially by anything that happens as a result of this.
In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. The note was a promise that all men, yes, Black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of liberty and happiness. We have come to cash this check, but we refuse to believe that the great vault of opportunity of this nation is bankrupt. And that is exactly Martin Luther King Jr., August 28th, 1963. We are looking, ladies and gentlemen, at a bankrupt nation, a nation incapable of fulfilling the promises of the Declaration of Independence. On this, its 250th anniversary of the nation. We should all be concerned. because the wool is going to be pulled over our eyes in just a few short days, just a few weeks from now, when the nation turns its attention to the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence with fireworks and military parades and rockets bursting in air and all of that. But the fact of the matter is we are a bankrupt nation, not only financially, but also a bankrupt nation morally. And that might be the greatest tragedy of this hour. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Ernest Krim when we come forward.
After nearly 20 years in Congress, he knows how to get at the issues that matter the most to you. Every day, he takes a deep dive into politics, social justice, and the stories that shape our community. This is where prominent people unpack perplexing problems. Unfiltered, unapologetic, unmissable. You're inside the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
Imagine every pregnant person in LA County having the support they deserve. A doula on every block. Doulas provide emotional, physical, and informational support during pregnancy, through labor, and beyond. Medi-Cal now covers doula care. That means you can get the support you need or train to support families in your community. The LA County Medi-Cal Doula Hub is here to help. Learn more and get started today at ladoulahub.com.
Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
58 years ago, a bullet tried to silence a dream. It couldn't. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us. Not because he failed, but because he was winning the fight for a nation determined to live up to its promise. That fight didn't end then, and it can't end now. California is the most powerful state and the most powerful country on earth. Right now, too many people are being left behind, priced out of their homes, locked out of opportunity, told to wait for justice that's already long overdue. Dr. King didn't wait. He taught us the fierce urgency of now and acted. Now it's up to us to carry that same urgency today. We need leaders who will fight the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. Not someday, now. On this anniversary, let's honor Dr. King the only way that truly counts, by doing the work. Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. At the heart of the Al Wooten Center's mission for good citizenship and academic excellence is a desire to ensure that every student avoids the kind of lifestyle and overcomes the kinds of challenges that led to the murder of Al Wooten Jr. In 1990, founder Myrtle Fay Rumpf opened the center in honor of her son's life. In 2026, they are serving more than 300 students in grades 3 through 12 annually online and on site at their youth center and other sites in the South LA area. The Al Wooten Jr. Youth Center takes a neighborhood approach to the revitalization and empowerment of a community in crisis. The Wooten Center provides free after-school and summer programs to help students in grades 3 through 12 attain grade-level proficiency and promotion, high school graduation, and college and career access and success. The Al Wooten Center focuses on academics, STEM, the arts, and so much more. Join them for an enriching experience that sparks creativity and nurtures young minds. Tap in at WootenCenter.org. That's WootenCenter.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our regular contributor, Ernest Krim, is joining me in conversation about the mental capacity and the health of the president, which, quite frankly, echoes the health of the nation. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, where 6 states are coming together, the Divine Nine and their Political Action Committee, their legislative leaders, to discuss political issues and the way forward, hopefully hoping for an open dialogue about what we can do to right the course of our nation together. Looking forward to the next 2 days here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then by Wednesday, we will be in the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We'll be in New York at the National Action Network, where Reverend Al Sharpton's organization will be gathering. It'll be the first time that my father has not attended the National Action Network since its founding. Obviously, my father recently passed, but he was so very proud of the work of Reverend Al Sharpton. So I certainly want to be there to support him in all of his endeavors as he ventures to keep hope alive for our nation. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks again for having me, brother. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Brother Krim, what's next? Are young people inspired to register and vote? I know you and I are here every Monday raising holy sand to get people's attention, but we need more voices. We need more young people pointed generally in the direction of engaging the primary process and showing up in November in great numbers. I was somewhat disappointed in seeing, even in my own primary election just a month or so ago, that only about 25% of the people showed up to vote. Well, that's really no way to engage the crisis of this hour. Ernest, what are you hearing about young people and their need and or willingness to engage at this hour?
When I'm in community with the young folks, I think that they, of course, are really understanding now. They get in a crash course in civics right now to see how this really impacts us. I think for so long, when I would teach these things and when anybody else would, the question that you would get in response is, well, how does this impact us on a day-to-day? And I think for now, what we can comfortably say is many of our presidents, especially prior to this, were maintaining things, and often many of the things that they advocated for, we would not see the results of immediately. And it's because this person has come in with the intent to destroy any type of social political progress we've had, that we're able to see the ramifications of that. It can take you years, right, to build a skyscraper, and you might not notice it because it's such a tedious process, but a wrecking ball could come through and destroy it in a couple minutes, couple hours, right? I think the best way to approach this, because as I talk to, young folks now at various schools and things like that, they feel the future is bleak, right? Especially talking to seniors in college. They are about to graduate, but to what? Like, what's the job force? Is AI taking a job? Is the degree worth anything? I think the thing that we have to truly focus on, to your point, is local elections. And I think we build that way. I think the error we make in education spaces is we teach from a top-down approach. We are mandating students, pass the Constitution in middle school and high school and things like that. And I get that. They should know their federal rights, but they are not aware of how that connects then through this system of federalism to the state level, to the local level. If we're getting 60 to 70% of registered voters, not everybody above 18, but registered voters to vote in presidential elections, then why is there such a stark decline for local elections? You said 25%. Where I'm at in the Chicago area, sometimes it's 10% in local elections. That's the issue. And it doesn't seem to make any sense at all outside of the fact that we aren't having it promoted to us in the same manner that federal elections are. So I think that if we all can say, okay, we see the problem at top, what can I do now? Let's not get overwhelmed. What about your mayor? What about your city council members? What about your school board? What about your local rep? And then we build up from that and help folks understand, especially in this age group, how this connects to the bigger picture.
The bigger picture, that's really what's at stake. Our campaign tried to reach out. We registered at least 2,000 people to vote in the congressional district, bringing new people into the process. And that's the way that I know to expand the vote process. But I was reading a really, really interesting article in the New York Times today that says the old way that campaigns were run are not the new way that they are run. Going to community meetings, participating in forums, participating in debates. If you don't have the resources to drive home a message to the constituents through video, through direct communication, through broadcast television. These campaigns are essentially fait accompli. That democracy in and of itself cannot compete with the massive amount of money, both dark, both independent expenditures and interest groups that have vast resources like the American Israeli Political Action Committee. Ernest, can you leave us in these 4 minutes or so that we have left with a word of hope and how we go forward?
Definitely. And even to your point, I think that, so many of us have smartphone access, social media access, but that same percentage of people who are connected, at least in this country, aren't voting. Many people don't even realize you don't have to just vote on that day, right? Now, we know mail-in ballots, that's an iffy thing right now, but there's an opportunity oftentimes a month before to even get involved in this process. But every time I log on to TikTok, I see, shout out to all the NBA prospects, but I'm seeing like countless commercials of NCAA stars promoting their favorite food or their favorite product or whatever. But I don't see the same money invested in local campaigns and things like that impact us. I see my favorite content creators advertising food products and things like that. That's cool. But this is where people are. People aren't going outside like that. Now, I do see that shifting slightly, right? People want to get back in community, be in these third spaces, but most folks have evolved in this point in time in history to find solace with their device. We have to find a way to bridge that gap to connect to where people are, because if we have a democracy here, it is predicated upon how many people are actively involved in the process. But the fortunate or unfortunate thing is, whether 5% vote or 95% vote, that person who gets in power is going to impact 100% of people who live here. And what I want to say to you all in closing, as a bit of a word of hope, is today is Easter Monday. This is what I extract from this. In the late 1800s, the White House began to do the Easter egg hunt, right? Late 1800s, we're talking around the Reconstruction era. Of course, Black families weren't allowed to participate in this. In fact, the whole Easter weekend, you have Black families, particularly domestic workers, who are still expected to work during this holiday weekend. So what Black families started to do, because they weren't invited to this version of a cookout, they decided to make their own version. So Easter Monday, the following day, became the day that we decided to be in community with each other. This started out as small gatherings in the DC area. It would expand to the Smithsonian's National Zoo, which opened up its doors to us. And this is in the late 1800s. By 1910, 1920, you see as many as 55,000 Black people coming to this region to be in community. So what I get from this is, y'all, no matter what we go through, Jim Crow, apartheid, segregation, or whatever, no matter what type of barriers are going to be placed in our way, we're going to find a way to create. But the centerpiece of all of that has to be community. I know we are getting, quote unquote, educated on these phones, on TikTok, but the way that we bridge these gaps and push forward is to get back in person, in community, because that's where all the solutions reside. I truly believe in us in this moment, and we only have that foresight to understand that we can make it if we go back far enough to see what we did in similar situations.
That is brilliant word of hope here on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show by a former high school instructor and teacher. And I just want to add, the day I show up in community, and I do plan to show up in community with Ernest Krim, I'm going to remind everybody that the word Easter is not in the Bible. There is no Easter in the Bible. The ritual that the crucifixion and the resurrection has become is not in the Bible as Easter. Nothing to do with bunnies, nothing to do with eggs, nothing to do with pink outfits, little blue outfits, yellow outfits, or hats. Nothing at all to witness a human execution. Death by lethal injection. Death by crucifixion, death by assassination. Nothing about that process is the modern process that we celebrate and that has been, if you will, whitewashed. That's whitewashed Christianity. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, Reverend Terry Hord Owens and Rabbi Stephen Jacobs. More when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A new report from New York City about 62% of residents cannot afford to live in the city. Officials say the affordability crisis is closely tied to racial inequity. Black and Latino New Yorkers disproportionately impacted.
The neighborhoods hit hardest by rent and the rising nature of it, by childcare costs and the suffocating manner of it, are the same ones that have been hit for years.
The administration is now pushing agencies to address those disparities. Pepsi is pulling its sponsorship of London's Wireless Festival after backlash over rapper Kanye West being booked to headline all 3 nights. The company had been the event's main sponsor for years. And a historic Black church in Williamsburg, Virginia is preparing to celebrate a major milestone. First Baptist Church will mark its 250th anniversary with a multi-day celebration later this year. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
In Glendora on the 210 westbound as you're coming up on Grand, we've got a new accident. This is going to be blocking the left lane. You're almost backed up to the 57. Now, once you're past it, it's still going to be slow because we have that disabled semi 210 westbound right after Irwindale Avenue, trying to get that cleared from the middle lane. And in Culver City on the 10 east at Robertson, I still have report of a mattress in the middle lane.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A couple of impressive notes from the national championship for the UCLA women's basketball team. In their final 4 games against Texas and South Carolina, UCLA never trailed in either game. The Bruins held Texas 40 points below their scoring average and kept South Carolina 28 points below their scoring average. The Bruins are only the second women's basketball team in the Big Ten Conference to win the national title. Purdue did it in 1999. UCLA coach Corey Close and her staff will face a very tough rebuilding challenge in the offseason. Close is losing 8 seniors. 6 of the seniors were her best players. Lauren Betts, Kiki Rice, Gabriella Jaquez, Angela Dugalic, Gianna Neekins, and Cherise Lega-Walker. Close also does not have any recruits coming in that are listed on ESPN's top 100 list for 2026. The Bruins are going to need some significant help from the NCAA transfer portal. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's Moving Mountain Mondays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Hord Owens. Reverend Owens is the General Minister and President of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. She is the first person of color and second woman to lead a mainline denomination here in the United States. Terry, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hello, Jesse. Good to be with you today.
I'm so honored that you're here. Also joining us is my very good friend, Rabbi Stephen Jacobs, who's participated in a variety of important historical events. In 2001, he was awarded the Walter Cronkite Faith and Freedom Award. Rabbi Stephen Jacobs would go on to found the Progressive Faith Foundation, began preaching on the values of racial tolerance and interfaith acceptance in the 1960s, drawing the attention of Reverend Jesse Jackson in 1967. That's just how long he's known my father. Reverend Jackson introduced him to Martin Luther King Jr. Rabbi Stephen Jacobs and King once walked hand in hand during the marches for civil rights. Rabbi Jacobs, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, and wonderful to be with the three of us together.
You know, we've got so
much.
We've got, thank you, Rabbi. We've got so much to talk about. I do want to deal at some point in time with Paula White and her suggestion this past week that Donald Trump is in the footsteps of Jesus of Nazareth, and the comparisons were just too colorful, given all that we've experienced and the American people have witnessed against the backdrop of the testaments themselves. We'll come to that in a moment, but I'm particularly grateful that Rabbi Jacobs is here because he and I both had the privilege of working together to co-author a piece that appeared in Chicago's Tribune, really focusing on the aftermath of the American-Israeli Political Action Committee's heavy-handed financing in congressional districts across the country, really shaping the outcome of Democratic primaries and, quite frankly, the behavior of Democrats in the fall. Rabbi, can you share with our listeners what insights you gained from working together on this piece and why you felt this piece was particularly timely?
Because I not only were you running for office and so needed as a voice sometimes in the wilderness, and we find ourselves in the wilderness, that I felt it imperative to stand up with growing numbers of Jews, millions of Jews. A dear friend of mine in Israel called me last night and read the article, and he's very active in human rights in Israel, and said, yes, Netanyahu and Trump are one of a kind that are hell-bent on destroying relationships. And I want to say, not incidentally, in listening to your show last hour, I remember very clearly when your father and I were in Jerusalem and we went to a church and we went into the basement and there was a large oil of Jesus, and it was totally a white person. Jesus was white. And your father looked at the caretaker and said, how could Jesus be possibly white in the Middle East? And the caretaker, the person who was in charge, started to cry and said, thank you for standing up. Donald Trump and Netanyahu are white people who assume the leadership of Jesus, and for Trump to assume, or for people to assume that this is another Jesus, is a desecration of everybody that stands for something in terms of what religious values are about. And this is an understatement. This man is dangerous.
Terry, I think Rabbi Stephen Jacobs has hit the nail on the head and the ball out of the park. There is a lot of concern and growing unease about Trump's basis for moral authority and the proximity to which white American Christians identify with what he is doing outside of the constitutional norms. Dr. Owens?
No, I agree with you. The Rabbi Jacobs has hit the nail out of the park. He has no moral authority on which to stand, and the authority is really one of economic supremacy, or the desire for it, which is again tied up in white supremacy in the United States. And we must continue, I think, to separate the actions of the Israeli government from the views of the Israeli people, just as we must separate the actions of this American government from the views of the American people. They do not always coincide. And I think Netanyahu and Trump have both leveraged on each other's particular trauma-informed responses in one way or another. They're both seeking their own desire for power and not really paying attention to any not only what their own people are saying, nor are they standing credibly on any kind of moral center. I don't think Jewish law or Christian understanding would support either one of them.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Rabbi, go ahead. We have about 1 minute before we have forward.
Okay, just quickly, 1967 is when I went to Washington, D.C. and met your dad and marched in an anti-Vietnam protest with MLK and your dad. There was a moral opposition to an unholy war then, and now, almost 60 years later, there is a growing opposition to this unholy war in the Middle East. Just think, paying $1 million a day to support this madness when people are suffering. A civilian infrastructure is being destroyed. Trump celebrates himself as some kind of a messianic figure. This is what we must confront and we must take down. This is moral. This is a moral insanity.
These are dangerous times. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Rabbi Stephen Jacobs and Reverend Terry Hord Owens right here on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
Time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Created with a share of the 1984 Olympic Games surplus, LA 84 began operations in 1985 as a grant-making and educational foundation. Today, the LA 84 Foundation supports hundreds of nonprofit youth sports organizations throughout Southern California annually, trains coaches, commissions research, convenes conferences, and maintains the world's premier Olympic and sports library collection. They are transforming lives and communities through the power of youth sports. To find out about youth sports programs for yourself or your child, and to get information about the grants and support they offer to schools and nonprofits, or if you want to make a donation, please visit la84.org. That's la84.org. Or you can call them at 323-730-4600. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's cal-cruise-news.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is what the president wrote, Rabbi Stephen Jacobs and Reverend Terry Hord Owens. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day. That's a war crime. I mean, you can't shut down people's refrigerators with their food in them and turn their water off on the scale of the tens of millions of people that live in Iran or any country on earth. That's a war crime. And Bridge Day, he's going to cut off access of people to traverse in their own country. That's another war crime. All wrapped up in one, in Iran. That's tomorrow. Tomorrow, that's what the world is looking to hear if the Strait of Hormuz is not open. And then he goes on the ranting of a lunatic. There will be nothing like it. Open that effing strait. You crazy bastards is the word that our president used. Or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald John Trump. Why the Terry, let me start with you. Why the slap at Islam? Of course he's being cynical.
Yeah, there is just no respect for humanity. The president clearly does not even respect the humanity of Americans. This continues to put Americans at loss and at risk. There's the term crimes against humanity. Those are the war crimes. Actions during war that jeopardize the lives and well-being of non-military combatants. That's crimes against humanity when we do not respect the genuine need for human beings to flourish. Power, the Iranians are talking about hitting tech companies. This whole thing is devolving. And for him to say, praise be to Allah, the fact that you do not respect any religious tradition, whether it is your own or not, is again a slight against all humanity. That you cannot operate in a global network of humanity and not respect differences. Differences do not make us deficient. They simply make us different. And he does not respect anything that is really not Donald Trump.
There's this sense that the president, Rabbi Jacobs, is so unhinged. I certainly hope, and I'm not going to give him any ideas, I certainly hope he does not post a picture of the prophet.
No.
The consequences of that would be as extraordinary as anything we've seen in our lifetimes, Rabbi. But the president let's this line here, Rabbi.
Not difficult to understand how Trump operates. This his excessive praise getting for capturing the soldiers, reuniting them, I think is wonderful. It's everything that drives him is to keep him away from any criticism about all the activities that are going on here, the gas prices, the people suffering, the $1 billion more a day for war. And then people get up and in the Christian community and even in the right-wing Jewish community, they say, pray for Donald Trump. Let me tell you what Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote in 1970. Prayer is meaningless unless it is subversive, unless it seeks to overthrow and to ruin the pyramids of callousness, hatred, opportunism, and falsehoods. And you can't pray for the soul of this president when everything that's going on is subversive. Keeps us away from the criticism of everything that's going on with Epstein files, going on with people, et cetera, et cetera. We could go on and on. That is a great distraction. And then the excessive need that he has for praise from the people surrounding him. This is callousness. This isn't prayer. This is dividing us one from the other.
Rabbi, how far do you think this president is willing to go to make that point?
I'm afraid to answer that. I think he's capable. I think he's capable of great destruction, and he sees himself as the great that's the way he sees himself, as the great new Jesus of this century. And that's what drives him. That's what's scary. And we have to be bold. We have to stand up as we did against the war in Vietnam and not let this man destroy our lives and our hopes. When you say keep hope alive, it's a matter of working to keep hope alive. You can't just rely on religious tenets and on prayer. It doesn't work.
Madam President, the same question. What is this president capable of doing?
I sadly fear that he is capable of doing anything that saves his own hide, so to speak. I always thought that there would still be people who would pull him back from the brink. And it's becoming clearer and clearer that people are willing to, including our own Congress, including members of his own party, that are simply willing to allow him to take us closer and closer to that brink. And just when you think that someone will stand up and say that's too far, we go one step further. So I have great, my only hope, we always end the show with hope. My only hope is that the American people and perhaps people around the world will ultimately stand up and offer the kind of critique and the kind of corrective action that may be necessary. I think if once we abandon the things like the Geneva Convention, when we all agreed that in order for humanity to survive, we must all recognize and respect one another and not engage in these kinds of behaviors. The Pope on Easter Sunday in his prayer said, or the other day before, I guess it was on Good Friday, he said, God does not hear the prayers of people who wish to rain down fire and destruction upon humanity.
Thank you. Thank you.
The Christian tradition recognizes this as well, but I fear for how far this man might go unless there are people who have enough moral backbone to stop him. And that includes our Congress as well as the people who work on his staff.
I love your spirit, not by might, not by power, but by the Spirit. And your spirit, Reverend, your spirit, Jesse Jr., is what we need to bring millions of people together to stand up against this atrocity of modernity.
Rabbi, Reverend Owens brought forward the idea that Iran is looking at NVIDIA, looking at Apple, looking at Amazon, looking at attacking data centers. Did the Trump administration misread Iran's capacity to do great damage to our economy as well as the global economy when they began this conflict? Did they misread it, Rabbi?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I'm hoping not, but this is a great threat that could be carried out. I would not distrust Iran from doing very dangerous things. They keep saying that they have no, ability to do this. I'm skeptical of that. I think they could attack the tech companies, and this is another instance of divide and conquer, so that it scares millions of people around the world.
Terry, your thoughts? The same question. Did the government of the United States, with Trump's bravado and certainly Pete Hegseth's bravado, misread Iran's capacity to wreak havoc on the global economy?
I absolutely think they did. You simply cannot declare this kind of war. All the analysts, the former retired military, everybody's talking about you count the costs. Jesus said this, you must count the cost before you enter into any kind of military conflict. And the idea that you know more than anyone else is the first sign, pride goeth before a fall. No one thought through what was possible. And the idea that you could simply bomb people into oblivion, as opposed to not only speaking and negotiating rationally, but working with other partners around the world so that you had a coalition that could stand against what we all know is Iran's track record. No one doubts the capacity of Iran to wreak havoc or evil on the world, but we certainly never imagined that the United States would be the single actor in trying to curb that. We have now put the entire world against us, not just Iran, and that's perhaps just as dangerous and will have real long-term consequences.
One of the reasons I'm grateful for Rabbi Jacobs being here with us today is that when I ran for office in this past election, and I know other candidates are running for office as well, Rabbi Jacobs was well aware of what Dr. King said when he talked in that speech Beyond Vietnam in 1967, a year before he was assassinated, about how programs designed for social uplift had essentially been carried out by Congress all too briefly. And now the resources were being shifted from programs of social uplift in the United States that could have closed profound gaps in our society, were now being shifted to Vietnam, to bombing peasants, to bombing people who were simply trying to feed their families. I raised this question, Rabbi, in this final 4 minutes of this half of this hour. I see the direct parallels now between the resources that we need here at home, Donald Trump's $1.5 trillion military budget, his statement this week that he cannot fund Medicare, Medicaid, and programs of social uplift at the same time as he's conducting war, which really leaves a future Congress without the capacity to advance the Great Society or any kind of New Deal. Rabbi, we have about 3 minutes before we come forward. I do want to hang around this immoral space of the budget not following the needs of the people.
Well, I mean, there's so much. I have to tell you what I'm going through. Your voice was and is so needed in Congress, and because of certain circumstances, you're not going to serve in Congress right away, but your voice can be even more impactful now with your knowledge, your brilliance, to be able to bring this to light and not be constricted by the norms of Congress. And I want to say something that out of the Passover service, there were pharaohs in all of our lives, and the plagues of ancient Egypt, of poor leadership, of living in fear, of humanitarian crisis in Gaza, of false narratives, of the plague of settlements, of a lack of vision. But the greatest plague of all is the plague of indifference. And if we're indifferent to Trump's promises that he's going to destroy life, and not only there, but here, we're going to be in deep, deep trouble. The plague of indifference affects all of us, and your voice, Jesse Jr., the continuation of your father's passion, MLK, and particularly of Blacks and Jews joining together, because we know what suffering is about, and we refuse to be indifferent.
Terry, we have about 2 minutes before we come forward. I have to share with you very quickly. My dad said that he used to ask my brothers and sister and I what the opposite of love was. And of course, as young people, we would say hate. He'd said, no, you have to, love requires a positive energy forward, and even hate requires a negative energy. The opposite of love is indifference. Terry, we have about a minute before we come forward. When I can turn back and say, you don't matter, you don't exist, I don't respect your humanity, that's a real problem. Terry?
And I think that's at the heart, really, of what we were talking about earlier in terms of, and Rabbi Stephen Jacobs, I'd love to hear you when we come forward talk about what's this connection between sort of the right wing MAGA in the Jewish community and white wing supremacy, Christian nationalism, that sort of thing. Do they emanate from the same place of white supremacy? And what are we dealing with there if we separate these two religious traditions, and what impact does it have on people in our country?
When we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, Reverend Terry Hoard Owens, the President and General Minister of the Disciples of Christ, has a very important lead conversation for Rabbi Stephen Jacobs when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's Afternoon Drive Time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump says he is taking action after a reported leak about a military rescue operation involving 2 downed American airmen.
The entire country of Iran knew that there was a pilot that was somewhere on their land.
He told reporters the leak put lives at risk and warned he may go to court to force the release of the source's identity, calling it a national security issue. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is reviewing the city's Inside Safe program after reports show many participants have returned to homelessness. She says more support services may be needed to address mental health and substance use issues. And Grammy-winning rapper Lil Nas X is due in a California courtroom today following his arrest last year in Studio City. He's accused of assaulting police officers during the incident, which reportedly left several officers injured and could face prison time if convicted. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It looks like they may still be cleaning up from that car fire in Ontario. On the 15 southbound just past Harupa, I still see some slowing coming away from the 10. Now in Glendora on the 210 westbound of Grand Avenue, trying to get that crash cleared from the lanes. It's going to be a slow ride coming away from the 57. But up ahead at 210 westbound just past Irwindale Avenue, it looks like they're clearing that stalled semi from the middle lane.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A couple of impressive notes from the national championship for the UCLA women's basketball team. In their final 4 games against Texas and South Carolina, UCLA never trailed in either game. The Bruins held Texas 40 points below their scoring average and kept South Carolina 28 points below their scoring average. The Bruins are only the second women's basketball team in the Big Ten Conference to win the national title. Purdue did it in 1999. UCLA coach Corey Close and her staff will face a very tough rebuilding challenge in the offseason. Close is losing 8 seniors. 6 of the seniors were her best players. Lauren Betts, Kiki Rice, Gabriella Jaquez, Angela Dugalic, Gianna Neekins, and Cherise Lega-Walker. Close also does not have any recruits coming in that are listed on ESPN's top 100 list for 2026. The Bruins are going to need some significant help from the NCAA transfer portal. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Following the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
58 years ago, a bullet tried to silence a dream. It couldn't. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us, not because he failed, but because he was winning the fight for a nation determined to live up to its promise. That fight didn't end then, and it can't end now. California is the most powerful state and the most powerful country on earth. Right now, too many people are being left behind, priced out of their homes, locked out of opportunity, told to wait for justice that's already long overdue. Dr. King didn't wait. He taught us the fierce urgency of now and acting. Now it's up to us to carry that same urgency today. We need leaders who will fight the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. Not someday, now. On this anniversary, let's honor Dr. King the only way that truly counts, by doing the work. Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr.
publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour on The Faith Not the Fall with Reverend Terry Hord Owens, we are joined by a very special guest, Rabbi Stephen B. Jacobs, who became very great friends with my father, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. They began to invite each other to a number of interfaith peace missions throughout the Middle East, such as Israel, Syria, Lebanon. They met with high-level authorities, including Yasser Arafat and world leaders of the Hamas political party. In 1999, he and Reverend Jackson traveled as part of an interfaith delegation to Yugoslavia to discuss the release of American Prisoners of War. Just before we came forward, Terry Hord Owens, the president and general minister of the Disciples of Christ Church, had a very important question that she was positing to Rabbi Jacobs regarding MAGA and Jewry and the interplay between Netanyahu and Donald Trump. Reverend Owens, please take your time and restate your question.
Sure. And Rabbi Stevens, you mentioned earlier at the top of the show that there were, you called them right-wing sort of MAGA Jews. And I'm just trying to get some clarity about what the difference is in the Jewish community, perhaps even what the attraction is there, not only in the United States, but also in Israel, who all Jews don't support, all Israelis don't support Netanyahu. All Jews in the United States, I don't think, support Netanyahu. So what's the attraction there? How would you characterize that? Is it a form of Zionism in the same way that we would call Christian nationalism something separate, or how do you understand that?
First of all, I really appreciate the powerful question. I think that the right wing in Israel is powerful in the sense that Israelis are scared, because of Netanyahu's leadership, they're going to be driven into the sea and there'll be no more Israel. But let me tell you what my friends in Israel, when you talk about right-wing MAGA, Ben-Gvir, who's to the right of Netanyahu, is wearing a noose on his lapels this past week and says anybody that kills an Israeli will be hung. And people, this is like madness. And this is I related to the vice president of the United States, who wants to make this country a Christian country, all white country, so that MAGA can control the world. And in the process, when they come out in Israel and this United States, who is it that suffers? They drive blacks and Jews against one another. We are the ones that they go after because we stand up for the values for humanity. So it's scary, both in Israel, because people are so fearful, but Netanyahu has his day, but that day is not going to last. Both Netanyahu and Trump want to keep themselves out of being prosecuted, and so they'll do anything to scare people around the world. And we're not buying it. And growing numbers of Jews around the country realize that anti-Semitism has a lot to do with Netanyahu's attitude towards how he's going to conduct wars, and people in the United States growing numbers, millions of Jews are against the leadership in Israel. And the only way we're going to deal with anti-Semitism is by our leadership and our growing power with one another to stand up as we have for decades against this violence.
Madam President, do you have a follow-up?
No, just maybe a follow-up comment that we have worked really hard. My denomination, the Disciples of Christ, along with our global ministry partners, the United Church of Christ, have been critical of the actions of Netanyahu and the government of Israel. And we've always been very careful to distinguish that critique as not being one that should be read as anti-Semitism or any malevolence against the Jewish people themselves, either here or in Israel, but the actions of the government that we would argue not only violate our particular moral code, but violate what we understand about the Jewish people as well. So,
and to add to that, the growing voice across this world against the expansion of the settlements is something that is just so destructive. And I totally appreciate you and agree with you.
Rabbi, we've worked really hard for a number of decades on strengthening the relationship between Blacks and Jews here in the United States. And part of the basis for our op-ed in the Tribune went, I think, to the core of the two different Exodus stories. One God that emerge out of our respective struggles. One by divine decree, thus saith the Lord, let my people go. We're all familiar with the story of Moses, but a more complicated path emerges when it comes to ending chattel slavery for African Americans, admitting states to the Union, states seceding from the Union, the fight for the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65, and public accommodations legislation, which you were instrumental in advancing. Our path out of the same Exodus experience is quite different. Rabbi?
I think it's different, but I think it's the same. Let me share with you, when the Israelites finally left Egypt and were on the way to what they considered to be the Promised Land, thousands of Jews leaving Egypt and the Pharaoh came to the Sea of Reeds, and they got scared and they wanted to turn back. Even in slavery, they had 3 meals, and they stood at the edge of the Red Sea, and one man by the name of Nachshon put his feet into the sea, and they were able to cross safely with the Egyptians in pursuit. Now, the interesting thing is, when they got to the other side, we are told that the Israelites started to rejoice. And we are told that God got very angry at the Israelites for rejoicing because they were saved and achieved a modicum of freedom. And God said to them, how dare you rejoice when my children are drowning? That's what we share. How dare we rejoice at others that are drowning around the world?
Reverend Owens?
Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. This is why, my friends, we need to understand each other's traditions so much better, because there are powerful things in all of our traditions that are embraced and reinforced by others of our texts. I don't think we can be good Christians unless we understand the sacred Jewish texts, because those are the things that actually informed Jesus himself, and our understanding of who God is, if we understand God to be a just God, comes largely from the Jewish framing of that God. And so thank you for that, Rabbi Stevens. I really appreciated that.
I have a proposal, Reverend.
Please, Rabbi.
Yes.
I propose that we merge.
How about it?
I'll tell you, we need each other, and we can make Jesse Jr. the executive director. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
I have a proposal. I'd like to take our radio show to Jerusalem and to the West Bank at the appropriate time under both of your
ready. I'm ready.
I think we need to broadcast live from the ground.
Right. And we've got a lot of allies there. A lot of allies.
I'm very excited about the prospects of that, Rabbi, and I'm going to be in touch with you and with the owner of our station about the possibility of a week in Jerusalem and in the West Bank, discussing these critical issues on the ground that we might offer some clarity here domestically.
It's a great idea. It's wonderful.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, a word of hope from Reverend Terry Hord Owens and a word of hope from Rabbi Stephen Jacobs right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
After nearly 20 years in Congress, he knows how to get at the issues that matter the most to you. Every day, he takes a deep dive into politics, social justice, and the stories that shape our community. This is where prominent people unpack perplexing problems. Unfiltered, unapologetic, unmissable. You're inside the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance tech at a university, he knows ordering from multiple suppliers takes time away from keeping their arena up and running. That's why he counts on Grainger to get everything he needs, from lighting and HVAC parts to plumbing supplies, all in one place. And with fast, dependable delivery, he's stocked and ready for the next tip-off. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return, but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Some days, self-care starts with Nature Made gummy vitamins, a deep breath, and a little encouragement.
Mom, I'm really nervous.
Me too, honey, but we've got this. Repeat after me. I'm going to have a good day.
I'm going to have a good day.
I choose joy no matter what comes my way.
I bring joy wherever I go.
Quality gummy vitamins from Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist-recommended vitamin and supplement brand, based on a survey of pharmacists who recommend branded vitamins and supplements.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580.
It's Moving Mountain Monday on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, The Faith Not the Fall, with Reverend Terry Hord Owens, and our very special guest, Rabbi Stephen Jacobs, joins us in this hour. Reverend Terry Hord Owens is the General Minister and President of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. She's the first person of color and second woman to lead the denomination. And Rabbi Stephen Jacobs, not only a great friend of my father's, a great friend of mine, he has traveled the world on behalf of the peace and uniting the Abrahamic faiths of Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And I'm very grateful that he co-authored an article with me this week on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Dr. Owens, Rabbi Jacobs, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I ask both of you for your word of hope, I do want to comment and get a thought from both of you on the state of the First Amendment, which includes our ability to practice our respective faiths. The President of the United States has recently said that he wants to know and jail the media personnel that are responsible for leaking that a second pilot had not been recovered before he was recovered, therefore jeopardizing the life of that pilot. He encouraged the media not to report it, hence intensifying, once it was reported, the Iranian search for the American pilot. I can see an argument on both sides of that. But at the same time, Rabbi and Reverend Owens, this is also the administration that kicked the press corps out of the Pentagon. And there seems to be a balance that has been struck by previous presidents. And the reason I raise this question is because the same right that they have to report is the same right that we have in the Constitution to practice our faiths. Let me first begin with a comment by Reverend Owens on this, and then a comment by Rabbi Jacobs, and both of you will have your respective words of hope at the end of the program. Reverend Owens.
Yeah, I think that the trust that the public has always placed in the freedom of the press and the right to know and have information in order that we might govern those who are elected and appointed to serve on our behalf is really important. I think, as you said, there are probably comments to be made on both sides. Were it not for the fact that this administration has continually tried to erode access by the press to important information, and the press who cover the Pentagon and military activity are well versed in not giving away classified information, and they know how to handle these subtleties. So I think that's totally just a fraudulent claim to make. He didn't want anybody to think that he failed at doing something. You always have to go back to what's in this man's head, and that is he doesn't want you to think that he is not winning at all costs.
That's well said. Rabbi?
If it's true that the truth shall make you free, Donald Trump always has to have an enemy. And so his truths are not our truths. And when he does this and he demeans somebody for trying to tell the truth and to demean what the Constitution says, we get into deeper trouble. But this man always has to have an enemy to make him look great, whether it's the physical attributes of somebody that doesn't measure up to what a human being is. He demeans them. He mocks them. And this is what's dangerous about him. His truths are not our truths. And the people that surround him have told so many lies. And so it distracts us. And so when this person, and yes, we want to protect our soldiers, but not all truths are known about this. And again, this man is a genius in distracting us and creating enemies every single day.
As is our custom here on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, we always allow for a word of hope from our very special guests. As a part of my rearing, I would love for Reverend Terry Hoard Owens to go first. However, on our show, to have the last word is actually to go first. And so I'd like our very special guest, Rabbi Stephen Jacobs, to offer a word of hope, followed by a word of hope and the final statements of our show, Reverend Terry Hoard Owens. Rabbi Stephen Jacobs, please offer our listeners around the world a word of hope.
The word of hope is how we communicate with one another. And I find great hope and emotional satisfaction and meaning by the ways in which we communicate, of bringing us together. The Reverend and I and you, Jesse Jr., share a journey of hope. It comes from both of our traditions, and I embellish it, I speak of it, and I act upon it every single day. Without hope, we are lost. And one of the greatest gifts that your father ever offered the world constantly is keep hope alive. And we can only exist every single day of our lives with hope in our hearts, with hope in our minds, and hope in the way we treat one another. God bless you both.
Man nor woman can survive on bread alone. Thank you, Rabbi Jacobs. Reverend Terry Hoard Owens, the president of the Disciples of Christ.
You know, I think this conversation, and I'm so grateful again to share airspace with Reverend Rabbi Jacobs. There are so many things that we all share alike as human beings. And generally speaking, all of our faith traditions are ordered around this idea that we can somehow participate with whatever we call holy in making the world a better place. And that our obedience, that our authenticity in practicing these traditions is grounded in how we treat one another and how we work to create a better world. And Christians have now just celebrated our Resurrection Sunday. The idea of that is that because of Christ, there is a better world that is possible, not simply because we follow particular Easter rituals, as you mentioned earlier, Jesse, but the fact that we can live as he has taught us to live helps us to honor and love and respect one another and build a better world. However you call the holy, that's what human beings who live together in moral society can function. And we can do a lot more together, respecting one another and aligning ourselves around those common values of seeking human flourishing and love and generosity and respect and prosperity for all of us.
Reverend Terry Hoard Owens, thank you very much for being on our program today. Look forward to seeing you next Monday.
Good to be with you. See you next week.
Rabbi Stephen Jacobs, I'm so grateful that you spent this time with us on our program, and I would love to have you back to talk about your unique relationship with Reverend Jesse Jackson and Martin Luther King Jr. Towards the final, I guess, quarter of Dr. King's life. I look forward to that conversation.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my sister.
It's been an honor, truly.
With the final 2 minutes of our program, I do want to comment on what Reverend Terry Hoard Owens talked about in whatever we refer to as the holy. To wake up looking for the holy in our neighbor, to see the holy in Reverend Terry Hoard Owens, to see the holy in Rabbi Stephen Jacobs, to see the holy in people every single day, no matter what form they present themselves in to us, is a factor in building a better and a stronger world. If Michael Jackson were still with us, he would ask us to take a look in the mirror. If we want to make the world a better place, take a look at ourselves and make that change. Staring in the mirror, we see ourselves. But in a real sense, the holy of the holies is our ability to look in the eyes of another woman, of another man, of another human being, and see the divine within them. And in that space, in that moment, pause and reflect not on their shortcomings, but reflect on human possibilities. reflect upon what we can do together and what we can do when we bring people together. That's what we try to do here on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, on the 5, on the 10, on the 110, on the Dan Ryan. If you're listening, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Until tomorrow, more on KBLA Talk 1580.